Hello, everybody. Welcome to our next panel, and welcome to our lovely guests. The topic of today's panel is really about you, the consumer, and how the consumer is being put at the forefront of really new and exciting marketing decisions being made. I'm going to dive right in, but just a reminder that you can ask questions using the link up above, starting with Annabel. To start, how have consumer habits changed over the last 2 years in the wake of the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think from Shopify, from an e-commerce lens, consumer behavior and spending habits have changed pretty dramatically throughout the pandemic and ongoing. So I probably break it down into kind of two key areas. It's the how we buy and the what we buy. So on the how side, I think the pandemic basically just brought everything forward at absolutely roaring speed, some of the trends that were already taking place. So that adoption of digital, and in particular being comfortable with buying things online across a whole number of different channels, is just part and parcel of the world for us now. And so if you think about the audience that we have, you've got that older generation that perhaps weren't buying online previously that are now totally used to it. Or you've got people in perhaps more rural areas or smaller areas who would buy what was available and what they knew, perhaps didn't explore as much, and now are so comfortable with looking up new things and discovering new brands that there's a lot of opportunity for that much smaller brand or unknown opportunity out there to try and get themselves heard. And then if we think about the what we're buying, interestingly, that kind of small brand is what's really resonated. So we did a couple of surveys at the end of last year, and just to kind of narrow it down, I'd say the three key themes that came out of it would be shop local, shop responsibly, and shop green. And so that kind of brand value is something that I think we've really seen has become much, much more critical to the average consumer.
Some really interesting changes there. I mean, I know at Vogue, a lot of our consumers really care about where their product is coming from, the supply chain, the owner of the business as well. There's a lot of interest around women-owned businesses and Indigenous-owned businesses, so just the rise of the conscious consumer has been really interesting. Peter, how are businesses keeping up with these changes?
Well, I think to start with, I'm not sure if there's many marketers in the audience or people who work across marketing, but the function of marketing is to make sure people have the opportunity, consumers have the opportunity to buy products. And I think with some of the bigger macro changes in the world right now, and speaking to many people in this space, supply chain is a massive issue, talent is a massive issue, the access to data is a huge consideration in so many ways. But I think it's at the kind of consumer-first perspective, one of the biggest challenges is also how do you reach customers? How do you reach consumers to get your wares in front of them? And so marketers in particular are taking a much more data-led approach. And I actually feel for a lot of people who do work in marketing trying to reach consumers because, if you're coming off a couple of years in lockdown and pandemic and you've seen record numbers coming through your business, record sales, and I'm sure Shopify has all the data on that. But one of the biggest challenges would be expectation. How do you maintain growth? And if you can't maintain growth as a marketer, there's some big challenges there as well. So I think what you start to see businesses start to do is use data in better ways, finding better ways to enhance their customer experience, because that's a competitive advantage in so many ways, and find ways to connect with relevance to their consumers.
So interesting. I think it's so great how brands really want to connect with the consumer. I think in the past we've had a lot of brands who kind of assume that they know their consumer in and out, but we really have the ability to know what's going on and get feedback straight away. Ray, getting a bit more specific, can you explain what affiliate marketing is and its current state of play in the Australian landscape?
Yeah, sure. So affiliate marketing is essentially performance-based marketing where businesses, reward affiliates or partners for bringing new customers to their site. At LTK, we only work with premium content creators, but there are a bunch of platforms that sort of work with a number of different affiliate publishers and programs like that. You can kind of think of it like a digital referral system. In terms of the state of the landscape in Australia, it's really varied. Some brands are incredibly sophisticated and have a really deep understanding of what affiliate marketing is, how to optimize it. And then some brands have never heard of it before. So at LTK, a lot of our job is educating brands on, the values of affiliate marketing. And the main one is really reaching and discovering a whole new pool of customers that you may not have even known existed.
Very interesting stuff. Annabel, so audience acquisition via traditional channels like Facebook and Instagram, well, traditional in 2022, has become more and more expensive. What are some creative or innovative ways businesses are getting around this?
Well, it's a fun question, isn't it? Interestingly, I feel like the answer is kind of in that question a little bit. So if you break it down, we're talking about acquisition and we're talking about channels. Acquisition is that suggestion that you've got to go out and grab your consumers. And what we're seeing is the consumer is the person that decides what they're going to buy and where they're going to buy it. So rather than thinking about acquisition, like you were saying, connecting to the consumer, you've got to be thinking about what your brand is. Build your brand loyalty and build your brand differentiation. And in particular, it's not just the cost of acquisition that's going up, cookieless world, increased privacy laws. You need to know what your brand is and you need to know who you're talking to, because you don't want to buy someone and them come and buy something from you once and then disappear. You want to build a relationship with those people so that they come back and they buy from you because they think that you're great. And then I think the other kind of area outside of that brand thing on a more kind of actionable level is that idea of channels. So Facebook and Instagram, if you're just going out there and putting your dollars down and it's going up for every cost per whatever, think more about, okay, well, people are buying on them. So we've got social commerce, you've got buying directly in an Instagram feed, off your TikTok, shoppable pins. There's so many opportunities where you can buy in that channel. You don't have to bring them necessarily to your site. But if you do, you want to be where they are, not force them to come to you.
So cool. I think it's really interesting how different pockets of the internet have such different audiences when it comes to shopping. Your Pinterest shopper versus your Instagram shopper versus your Facebook shopper. Very, very different audiences there. Ray, what advice do you have for businesses looking to integrate affiliate marketing into their strategies, especially working with influencers and publishers like Vogue?
Well, I'd say, I think the number one thing that we've found is in Australia, a lot of brands are small businesses. And naturally, as a small business owner, you want to have a certain extent of control over your brand image and, the people that are promoting your product. But I think my advice would be don't be afraid to loosen those reins a little. And when you join an affiliate platform, that's exactly what you're doing, because you're allowing, other content creators that have been approved onto the platform to link without a formal relationship between the brand and the publisher. And that can be scary, but by opening that pool of customers wider, you will learn so much more about your product and who loves your product and who likes to use it. And it might be completely different to what you had initially thought. So it can be a process of learning and discovery as well.
And discovering what's authentic, I think.
Yeah,
as well.
for sure.
On that topic of authenticity, Peter, influencer marketing. So influencer marketing is an area that's been subject to a little bit of scrutiny because it's supposedly inauthentic. How does affiliate marketing differ in this sense, and how does that, benefit the influencer, the consumer, and the brand in a different way?
Yeah, so can I tell a story?
Yeah.
I might take longer than the allotted time, but let's have a go.
It's your birthday, will it?
Thank you. I think just to kind of level set this a little bit, right? So the way that myself and the company I worked for, Impact.com, we look at this thing called affiliate as effectively an engagement where you pay someone a commission for delivering you an outcome, right? So the easiest way to think about that is you're reading some content on the site about a pair of shoes, about some makeup, about a destination you want to go to, you click on that, all of this is tracked. So when you go and purchase that holiday, that lipstick or those pair of sneakers, that website that sent you there is getting remunerated. Now, if anyone's ever bought anything off Instagram, when you've seen an influencer or someone talking about a product, not always is that connection between that influencer and the brand being understood and measured. So the story is this. I've got some Insta famous friends, right? I've known them for a long time. I met them at a dog park before they were Insta famous, and then I ended up marrying them, right? So I'm a wedding celebrant. Peter Bray celebrant, 1,500 followers. Big deal. Probably 1,511 after this. But so what I found interesting is that they were the first couple I ever married, and the combined follower count of people attending their wedding was something like 60 million people. And so they were featured in a whole bunch of magazines and a bunch of websites and what have you. And so I saw my follower count, slowly creep up. Not to her 2 million followers or his 200. Her name's Pia Muhlenbeck. His name's Kane Varto. Not his real name, but Instagram name. And what's interesting is that they are high-end influencers. They do amazing travel content. They do amazing cocktail content. They do amazing Tesla content. But when it comes to influence, it's questionable if you're a brand trying to work with them because they're great content creators. Me, on the other hand, I've got 1,500 followers and I marry people. But what's interesting about a relationship that I have with a brand, and this is a Melbourne-based, started boutique, but they're scaling up in e-commerce, accessory store called otaa.com.au. They do amazing pocket squares, bow ties, ties. So whenever a couple comes to me through my website and says, hey, we want to get married, well, I am trying to create influence, and I'm giving them some recommendations on videographers, photographers, wedding venues. But I'm also saying to them, hey, if you need to buy some pocket squares for your bridal party, if you need to get some ties for your groomsmen, whatever it is, I give them a unique code to me, and there's some value there. They get a discount, this couple gets a discount, the brand gets a new customer, and then I get a small commission. So what's interesting about that is that there's contextual relevance and influence. And when a brand is looking to work with influencers, sometimes it's always very top level, very kind of macro stuff. And I think what's going to start to shift in the marketing landscape, and don't get me wrong, brands have built their entire businesses of working with influencers. What's going to start to shift, and these are macro influences on marketers, is the idea of outcomes. So if you own a business here or you work in marketing or even in sales, you're only measured as good as what you can deliver, right? And so what will start to happen is this idea of brand marketing and the idea of just like straight influencer marketing where you're paying them for a post, it has to shift to some sort of outcome engagement. It has to be trackable, measurable, and delivering real results. So I'm sure everyone here has an opinion on influencer marketing. I find it really interesting. But it's definitely going to shift a little bit more to be outcome-based.
That's really interesting. I think the addition of KPIs, essentially, being able to track, this Instagram post led to this many sales. I think in the past it's just kind of been like, influencers are influencing, but to what degree and to what, number. And being able to actually track that is really, really important. Ray, on that topic, are we seeing a shift away from traditional marketing towards these more performance and results-driven tactics?
I think we're definitely seeing businesses adopt affiliate marketing more and more. That's not to say that traditional media has lost its value. And I definitely think, it is still relevant and important, and they both have different roles, right? So on traditional marketing, that, in my opinion, is that sort of macro marketing where you are reaching mass scale, you're building visibility, you're building your brand. Very important. Affiliate marketing, and specifically influencer affiliate marketing, allows you to more subtly reach new audiences and drive sales. And, we were talking about the pandemic and how that sort of shifted the whole retail paradigm. And I really believe it has, because during lockdown, retail was forced to close. And in order for a brand to reach its customers, it had to move online. And there was no other way for businesses to reach consumers other than online. And so digital connection became really, really important. And content creators played a huge role in that. And content creators, we were talking about the authenticity of influencers and is it genuine, but it is personalized shopping at its finest. You follow an influencer or a content creator because you like their style. You relate to them. You think they look like you. They've got the same color hair or body shape or whatever. So their ability, I think they're really positioned uniquely because they can describe the product experience and journey for consumers so that they can understand it themselves. They're information providers, so to speak.
And it's a lot more personal.
Yeah,
as well.
It's a different kind of...
I think there's also a lot of trust involved there as well. On the topic of kind of digital transformation and how COVID changed a lot of the shopping journeys that we have, Annabel, how are merchants like Shopify, I guess, streamlining the shopping journey and reducing the friction that consumers have when shopping online?
Yeah, I think it's just about I'm a broken record with this, but I always come back to this kind of idea of omni-channel. So you can't think of, back in the day, it used to be, I need a birthday present for Peter. I'm going to go online and Google something, then I'm going to go to that person's website, buy it, done. That's kind of the beginning and end of the journey. Now you've got influencers and you're following people and you're reading about content, and then you kind of end up on a random place where a lot of the time you can buy directly from that place. You don't necessarily always have to go to the site. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But thinking about things in a less linear way is something that merchants have to do in order to be able to progress. And I think also just along with that, you've got this emerging technologies, which, dare I say, I feel we were talking about this earlier, like having a bingo card of words that we should probably be using when you're talking about emerging technologies. So I've got to say Web3, I've got to say metaverse, just making, you can't be scared of them. Even as like your mom and pop little store, you've got to start actually being there. So we're all used to shoppable feeds now. That was new, like yesterday, basically. Now that's part and parcel of it. We've got live shopping taking over. We've got augmented reality. So we have one of our clients, merchants is Bailey Nelson. You can go on the site, you just try on the glasses, you can buy them online. So you can essentially never have to go to the store, but still have had that same experience. Cut to the metaverse, you're trying it on, buying it, never even getting a physical version of it and still being happy. Those things are happening so fast, we cannot be scared of them. You've got to just get involved. Test it out, might not work, might disappear tomorrow, but it's definitely changing from just the good old days of going, searching for something and then buying it straight up.
Yeah, and every generation is more confident with this technology.
Yeah,
so
sure.
While we may be kind of scared of Web3, the generation below us are already using it in so many different ways: music, art, fashion. And I think it's so interesting that people are buying things that they don't even physically have. It's just to exist in the metaverse. It's a brave new world out there. Peter, how do you expect marketing to evolve in the next couple of years?
Look, I've already touched on part of it, which is the idea of outcomes. And if you're, look, I often wonder, right, when you work in this industry, we kind of get stuck in our own little bubble of terminologies or our own little conversations. But you know, as I always try and put myself as a consumer and the idea of trust. And so advertising is a huge industry. We all know that. And if you don't know it, it's a big industry. And if you spend enough time watching Gruen on ABC, you also find out that advertising can have some dark sides to it. And what's really interesting, you see organizations, publishers like Vogue, who start to think about advertising in different ways. And it kind of comes back to what I mentioned before, which is trust and relevance. And so that is the idea of someone like a Vogue utilizing your amazing assets in the sense of journalists and the content creators, creating content for the Vogue audience that is relevant and it's meaningful and it works, rather than it be an ad, which is just another box on your laptop, right? And so the whole challenge that I think marketers have to face is trying to strike a balance around thinking about trying to force advertising down your throat so you buy more stuff, instead of trying to find ways to influence, to try and find ways to deliver great experiences in different ways that helps foster that connection. So looking at what I think is going to happen, and you can't trust me because I'm a sales guy, right? But I really do think that the shift will continue to happen, that brands are going to use data in the right way, not in the wrong way that you see on some of the big tech platforms right now. You're going to see data being used in the right way to make sure that you and I are being delivered great experiences that's relevant, so I can buy stuff that I actually do want and not being forced to. So I think it's quintessential element of what marketing should be. I think it's going to kind of lead towards that.
Yeah, no more buyer's regret, or at least less of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is a question for the whole panel, and Ray, I'll start with you. But what advice do you have for brands and creators who want to produce meaningful campaigns?
I would say for brands, be experimental, try a whole bunch of different strategies. I think the best marketing strategies will have a lot of different elements to it. And I think, what we traditionally have seen with businesses is that their marketing teams are very siloed. You'll have a PR and communications team, and then you've got the digital marketing team that works with like SEO, Google Ads. The best strategy will find somewhere in the middle that brings these two together really cohesively. And, without tooting LTK's horn, but I think that is what LTK as a business has done. It sort of brings that data together with the PR and the communications and the branding element, and it's finding those creators that will actually drive those sales for you. And then for brands as well, like don't close yourself off to content creators that you don't think are aligned with your brand, because I think, whilst you might have a very clear vision of what your brand should be, you'll learn so much more from your consumers and your customers that can help you sort of guide that product experience. As a creator, was that the second part of the question?
Yeah, creative brand.
I mean, we've been talking about it today, but sort of, it sounds cliche, but be authentic. Don't promote products that you wouldn't really use. No one wants to feel like they're being sold to. And also, I would say to content creators, don't be afraid to diversify across platforms. Stay up to date with the latest technologies. If Reels are out, use Reels. If TikTok's the next big thing, like just get onto it and play around with it and make sure that, you have some sort of experience, because technology is just evolving so fast and platforms come and go, and you want to make sure that you're in the best position to sort of build a business out of your content creation as well.
It's very true. Like, I think, especially with TikTok, a lot of us were kind of turning our nose off.
I know.
For so long, and then COVID happened, and everyone was on TikTok. Everyone's mum and dad was on TikTok, which was not expected. Annabel, do you have?
I'd probably just say you need to know who it is you're trying to talk to, and kind of be them as well to some extent, or at the very least know who your brand is to your consumer. Why should your consumer care? I mean, there'll be other brands like you out there. What makes you different? Is it your product? Is it the way you make your product? Is it the way you talk about your product? You need to know who your consumer is, and you've got to differentiate against them, because... Oh, got totally distracted then, sorry. Times are changing, technology's changing. Who on earth knows where we're going to be in 5 years' time? But the only thing that you can know is who your consumers are and who your brand is, and you've got to stick with it, because that short-term view is it's going to shoot you in the foot pretty quick, I'd say.
Look, some great points have been covered, and I'm actually going to flip it a little bit, which is the idea of having a following, being a content creator, and then building your own brand because you know what resonates with your audience. The uninspired and unemployed, they've created a beer brand called Better Beer. It's doing something like $7 million a month in e-commerce sales. They haven't even got a wholesale distribution yet. And that's because they've just got great content that resonates with their audience, and they know they're going to buy this actually really good beer.
Great e-commerce platform as well.
Oh, they're on Shopify. Wow, that's great. Shopify is great, by the way. But what's also interesting about that, I spent last year, I didn't have a drop of alcohol for 2021, and it was really boring. And no, it wasn't. It was awesome. But the rise of non-alcoholic beer, and these guys have jumped on that as well. They aren't afraid to, as young blokes, like Aussie Ocker guys, they're not there going, oh, hey, we're just going to make beer, and then because, boozers. They're like, actually, no, it's part of our lifestyle. Our audience have told us they want this, and they've created a phenomenal zero alcohol beer or low alcohol beer. So I think that's the flip as well. It's like if you have an audience and you understand who your audience is, take those insights to find something out of it and create a business.
And don't underestimate your audience either. I'm going to jump to some of the live audience questions, and I'll open it up to the panel. How will shopping in the metaverse change our habits once again? Ray, do you want to start off?
Oh gosh, the metaverse. Where to begin? I think it will be interesting. I mean, it seems like it's going along with the sort of sustainable movement where, you don't actually have to physically own a product to be able to wear it on Instagram or, show off the product. So I think from a sustainability point of view, we might be better off. But yeah, I find it crazy.
It is. It's really something weird to get your head around. But I don't know if you guys know, but buying outfits and kind of skins for your video game characters has been around for a while. And I used to spend, I think, like $50, $60 back in the day on like a weird kind of armor or something. So this isn't that outside the realm of that. It's just now opening it up to the greater public. Annabel?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset shift. I don't necessarily know if the shopping habits change. I think it's the value that you put on it. And maybe it's a generational thing, maybe it's just, the type of person, but I feel like the technologies are changing, but the shopping and the interest and the marketing and the things that go with it aren't actually that different. It's just the perception of what it is that you're buying.
And a lot more people get to perceive it too.
Yeah.
I personally am just not interested at all. And it's probably because I don't understand it enough, and I'm happy to say that. But I look at something like a metaverse from an external standpoint, the idea of commerce within it, not the benefits of Web3 or anything, but looking at it and saying, well, it's ultimately about elitism and scarcity. So if you can have something that no one else has and people can tell you have that, all it's going to further do is polarize people. It's going to create opportunity for negative association. I'm this, you're that. In the metaverse by acquiring things. I think it has a bit of a dark side to it. Of course, that's highly negative on my front. I do believe that human nature can overcome those things. But everything I see to do with commerce, buying land, buying stuff, building stuff in the metaverse is all geared with commercial interest. So therefore, it usually taps into the worst part of consumer behavior as well.
And I'll quickly ask one more question, which is, do you think this ability to instantly purchase via Instagram can be applied to high net worth purchases like an off-plan apartment or car?
Potentially. I think so. I feel like that relationship building, so I'll talk as quickly as I can because I know we're out of time, but in the old days it was, I want to buy something, okay, I'm going to go there, look for this thing, see an ad, whatever it may be, and buy it. Now when you think about content creators, affiliate, the relationship building is like this long. So by the time you actually get to the purchase and you're doing it potentially, say, on Instagram or wherever, you might be so confident and so aware of all of the elements of that relationship that you could do high net worth purchases. Doesn't feel like it's out of the realms of possibility.
Do you want me to go? No, you go.
Okay,
You
so
can go.
I think just to reflect on the previous question, like Web3, metaverse stuff, blockchain, if we want to get into that buzzword bingo stuff, the reason that you can't buy a car on the internet right now, well, you kind of can, but it's a gimmick. The reason that you can't buy a property on the internet or on a phone in Instagram, okay, no one wants to. For number one. But also there's conveyancing, there's like forms that need to be signed. The idea of a decentralized ledgers like blockchain, that is the thing that can make all that paperwork disappear, and then to make those really high net worth purchases more accessible in those mediums, right? So number one, there needs to be a big shift in the way you can acquire assets versus consumables. We largely buy consumables or like things via Instagram, what have you. So I think number one, there's going to be a technology-based change that makes it more appealing. But Annabel nailed it, which is, all because you're buying it there doesn't mean it started and finished in that transaction. You've been to that display suite, you've been and taken that new hybrid for a test drive. And so it's all these touch points that maybe that final piece is done digitally, and I don't see why it wouldn't. If it's adding value to us as the consumers, and I don't have to go and sit in the Ford dealership for 45 minutes filling out forms because everything's already enabled, and I've gone through that physical process of touch, feel, sight, research, whatever, but then I can actually go home and go, you know what, I'm ready, boom. That makes sense. Closing a loop once you've gone through the experience. I don't think anyone's really going to, on a whim, well, not many people, I can imagine, on a whim, buy a car via Instagram.
Maybe Elon.
He'll just make one, won't he?
He'll just make one. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists.
Thank you.